In a quiet Georgia town where everyone knew the sheriff's name, no one ever imagined that behind the badge lived a secret so twisted it would end in blood. Sheriff Tom Delaney was the law, respected, feared, untouchable. His wife, Amanda, was the perfect Southern woman. Graceful, loyal, and harboring a truth that could destroy everything. One summer night, that truth came to light. And by morning, she was dead. What happens when a man sworn to protect becomes the killer? What happens when the daughter you've raised was never yours to begin with? This is the story of love, betrayal, and the devastating cost of a buried lie. This is the case of the Georgia sheriff who killed his wife to protect a lie. If you're into dark true crime stories, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin. At first glance, Sheriff Tom Delaney had it all. Respected, decorated, and widely feared in Jasper County, Georgia, he was the kind of man people didn't question. For nearly 2 decades, he ran the sheriff's department with a firm grip, patrolling his hometown like it was his kingdom. Tall, broad-shouldered, and always dressed in neatly pressed khakis, Tom looked like a man who didn't just enforce the law, he was the law. At his side was his wife, Amanda Delaney, a woman the town loved just as much as they feared her husband. Amanda was the balance to Tom's steel. Where he was rigid, she was soft-spoken. Where he brooded, she smiled. Theirs was a picture-perfect marriage, at least to the outside world. Together they had one child, a daughter named Lily. 17 years old and college-bound, Lily was the kind of kid people bragged about. Intelligent, poised, and kind. Tom was obsessed with her. Amanda would joke that Lily was the only thing that could ever make her husband crack a smile. But behind the warm family portraits and 4th of July parades, there was a fracture so deep it would eventually split the family and the county wide open. It started with a letter. A plain white envelope addressed in handwriting Amanda hadn't seen in years slipped through the mailbox one quiet afternoon while Tom was on patrol. Amanda stared at the return address for nearly 10 minutes before opening it. Her hands shook the entire time. Inside was a single sentence written in ballpoint pen. "You gonna tell him, or should I?" No name. No signature. But Amanda knew who it was. It was Mark Delaney, Tom's estranged younger brother. The brother Tom hadn't spoken to in almost 18 years. The brother who might actually be Lily's father. Mark and Tom were opposites in every way. Tom joined the army straight out of high school. Mark? He drifted. Took odd jobs. Drank too much. Dated recklessly. And in the summer of 2006, shortly before Tom and Amanda married, Mark and Amanda had crossed a line that was supposed to stay buried. It was just one night. That's what Amanda always told herself. One night when Tom was away for training and she'd been lonely, confused, and still unsure about their upcoming marriage. Mark had always been charming in a dangerous kind of way. And that night, he'd been there. Weeks later, Amanda realized she was pregnant. She convinced herself the timeline fit with Tom's last visit. She'd never taken a test to be sure. And once Lily was born, with Tom's pale blue eyes and Mark's darker, sharper features, it didn't matter. Tom never asked questions. He was too busy being a father to care about biology. But now, nearly 18 years later, Mark was threatening to blow it all apart. Amanda waited 3 weeks before saying anything. She went about her days as if nothing was wrong, cooked dinner, helped Lily prep college applications, kissed Tom on the cheek when he came home late from night patrols. But the weight was crushing her. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. And finally, one night, after Lily had gone to bed and the house was quiet, she told Tom the truth. And just like that, the man who had kept a town in fear broke. Amanda didn't remember the entire conversation, only pieces of it. Tom had stared at her in silence for what felt like forever. She kept talking, rambling, trying to explain. "It was before we were married," she said. "It only happened once." But it wasn't enough. The man who had built his life on control had just lost the one thing he thought he owned completely, certainty. "She's mine," he kept saying. "She's my daughter. Mine." Amanda tried to calm him, reaching out to touch his arm. That's when she saw it, the gun. Tom always carried his sidearm. Always. But that night, as he walked away and down the hall toward their bedroom, Amanda saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen in 20 years, rage. She ran. Not for her life, she ran for Lily. But she didn't make it. One shot. Center mass. Amanda collapsed before she could reach the stairs. And then silence. The kind of silence only murder leaves behind. The official 911 call came in at 11:47 p.m. A neighbor, startled by what they described as a loud pop, like a gunshot, had looked out their window to see Sheriff Tom Delaney standing on his porch, motionless, illuminated by the flickering porch light. He wasn't calling for help. He wasn't panicking. He was just standing there. By the time deputies arrived, Amanda's body was already cold. She lay at the foot of the stairs in a pool of her own blood, a single gunshot wound just above the heart. No signs of forced entry. No struggle. No robbery. Nothing out of place except the fact that the sheriff's wife was dead. And Tom? Calm. Too calm. He told his deputies Amanda had been cleaning his service weapon and it accidentally discharged. He even added a few tears for effect. I told her never to touch it, he said. She never listened. But it didn't feel right. Not to Deputy Carla Hendricks, who'd worked under Tom for 8 years and had never once seen Amanda so much as handle a weapon. Not to Lily, who had come running from upstairs only to be held back by an officer and told her mother had an accident. And certainly not to the coroner, who later noted that the angle of the wound made an accidental discharge highly unlikely. But Tom Delaney was still the sheriff. And in Jasper County, that meant something. The case might have ended there, ruled a tragic accident, closed, forgotten, if it weren't for one man, Special Agent Reuben Clay with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Clay had been dispatched quietly after the coroner raised red flags. An off-the-record call. A whisper. Nothing official, just enough to get a second look. He interviewed Tom. He interviewed Lily. And then he interviewed Amanda's sister, who dropped the bombshell. Amanda had recently confided she was planning to tell Tom that Lily wasn't biologically his. She said it was tearing her apart, the sister told Clay. She wanted to be honest. But she was scared. Said she didn't know how Tom would take it. Clay's ears perked up. He pulled Amanda's phone records. In the weeks before her death, she'd exchanged a flurry of texts with one number, Mark Delaney, Tom's brother. Clay tracked him down in Florida, working construction under an alias. Mark didn't hold back. She finally told him, he asked. Well, I guess I should have expected it. Tommy never could handle not being in control. Mark admitted to the affair. The possibility of paternity. Even that he'd sent the letter. Lily's mine, he said. Not that it matters now. The next step was clear, DNA testing. Lily consented, confused but cooperative. All she knew was her mother was dead and her father was falling apart. She didn't know about the letter. She didn't know what Amanda had revealed that night. When the results came back, they confirmed what Amanda had feared for 17 years. Tom was not Lily's biological father. Mark was. Clay now had motive. He had circumstantial evidence. And thanks to Tom's clumsy cover story, he had a timeline that didn't add up. The angle of the shot, the residue on Amanda's hands or lack thereof, and inconsistencies in Tom's statements all pointed in one direction. Murder. By the end of the second week, the pressure on Sheriff Tom Delaney was suffocating. He didn't show up to Amanda's funeral. Said he was too emotionally unstable to face the crowd. The truth was he couldn't stomach the way people looked at him like they knew. And some of them did. Word travels fast in a small Georgia town and rumors travel even faster. The whispers started first. He was too calm. Something's off. Did you hear what she told him before she died? By week 3, those whispers had turned into open suspicion. Deputies who once saluted Tom now avoided his gaze. Friends stopped calling. And Lily, she had moved in with her aunt, Amanda's sister. She wouldn't even speak to him. But the real problem was Special Agent Clay. He wasn't backing off. Clay returned to the Delaney home with a search warrant. He seized the weapon, Amanda's phone, Tom's clothing from that night, and surveillance footage from the neighboring gas station, where, hours before Amanda's death, Tom had been caught on camera yelling into his phone. A tech specialist cleaned up the audio from a porch security system next door. It caught muffled shouting just minutes before the gunshot. One phrase stood out, repeated again and again. She's mine. She's mine. On August 9, 2023, less than a month after Amanda's death, Sheriff Tom Delaney was arrested for her murder. It was surreal. News cameras rolled as a man who had once locked up hundreds was now being led away in cuffs. Orange jumpsuit. Shackled hands. Head bowed. But not everyone was celebrating. The town was split. Some believed the evidence. Others thought it was a setup. After all, who else could take down a sheriff but the state itself? At his arraignment, Tom pled not guilty. His defense attorney painted Amanda's death as a tragic accident and claimed the state was trying to rewrite a family's grief into a murder mystery. But the prosecution had more than grief. They had motive, opportunity, and most damning of all, a statement. From Lily. Just days before the trial began, Lily released a handwritten letter to the court. It wasn't supposed to go public, but it did. In the letter, Lily wrote, "I always wondered why I didn't look like Dad. I loved him and I still do in some way, but I need to know the truth. I think my mom was trying to do the right thing. She didn't deserve to die for telling it. That letter, combined with DNA evidence and Mark's confession, crushed the defense's case. Even the jury looked shaken as it was read aloud. What sealed Tom's fate, though, wasn't science or sympathy. It was guilt. 3 days into the trial, Tom cracked. During a private recess, he called for his attorney and asked to speak directly with the judge. Behind closed doors, he confessed. I killed her. I didn't plan it. I just snapped. She said Lily wasn't mine and I couldn't breathe. I saw red. Tom Delaney was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The courtroom was silent as the gavel fell. Lily didn't attend sentencing. Neither did Mark. Jasper County had seen its share of crime, but nothing like this. Not a scandal. Not a political failure. A betrayal at the heart of the very system meant to protect them. A sheriff murdering his wife to protect a lie, and in doing so, destroying everything he claimed to love. The fallout was immediate and brutal. The sheriff's department was gutted. Every case Tom Delaney had touched came under review. A few convictions were even overturned after misconduct surfaced, search warrants signed too fast, witness statements coerced. Tom had always been known for playing hardball. Now, people were asking if he'd been playing dirty all along. And then there was Lily, the daughter who never asked to be born into a lie, who watched her mother die and her father transform into a stranger. She disappeared from public view after the trial, enrolling under a new name at a university out of state. A single reporter managed to find her and asked what she thought about her father's life sentence. He was never my father, she said softly. He just wore the uniform. Mark Delaney never returned to Georgia. After testifying, he vanished. No interviews. No statements. No public reaction. Just gone. Some believed he'd run off out of shame. Others suspected guilt. But one thing was certain, he never tried to claim Lily. Too much blood between us, he'd said once to Agent Clay. What kind of man would I be if I stepped in now? For all his recklessness, maybe Mark understood something Tom never did. Some truths come with a price. The Delaney house on Sycamore Road stood empty for months. Grass overgrown. Porch light flickering. A quiet monument to everything that had gone wrong. No one wanted to buy it. Even when the bank lowered the price to a third of market value, the listing stayed active. Locals said it felt cursed, tainted by the weight of betrayal, blood, and secrets too dark to forget. Teenagers dared each other to sneak in at night. Some claimed to hear a woman's voice whispering from the stairwell. Others swore the lights flickered without power. Of course, it was just a story. Or maybe just a town trying to explain the unexplainable. The story of Sheriff Tom Delaney made headlines across the country. Law and Blood read one. Brother. Father. Killer, read another. But behind the sensationalism was something quieter. Something more unsettling. This wasn't about a sheriff. Or a scandal. Or even a single act of violence. This was about the terrifying cost of secrets. Amanda Delaney tried to do the right thing. It cost her life. Mark Delaney tried to force the truth into the open. It cost him his family. Tom Delaney tried to protect the image of a life he never truly had and lost everything. And Lily? She was the final verdict. A living reminder that the truth always finds a way to surface, even if it has to dig through blood to get there. It started with a whisper. A quiet truth scrawled in a letter slid into a mailbox like a fuse waiting to burn. You gonna tell him, or should I? Just 10 words. But they cracked open a life built on lies. In the end, it wasn't the bullet that broke the Delaney family, it was the secret. In Jasper County, they don't talk much about Amanda Delaney anymore. The sheriff's name has been stripped from the courthouse plaque. The department's uniforms have changed. The seal on the squad cars has been repainted. But the wound he left behind? It never fully healed. In small towns like this, memories cling to corners like cobwebs. The church pew where Amanda used to sit every Sunday now stays empty. Lily's high school diploma still hangs in the office. No one had the heart to take it down. And sometimes at night, when the wind rustles the trees just right, people swear they hear a woman's voice, soft and mournful, drifting from the old Delaney place. But maybe that's just guilt echoing through the pines. Because if this story teaches us anything, it's this. Even the people sworn to protect us can be the ones we fear most. Even love, when twisted by shame, can become lethal. And sometimes, a whisper is all it takes to bring a monster out of the uniform.